Hey guys, welcome to another episode in the deep playthrough of a Unity epilogue session or section. I am reading through the database, also part of a thorough playthrough, getting to grips with the lore and the historical tidbits and backstories of the persons and locations. So still a lot of reading to do. Let's continue. This one we did Nostradamus in the end of the previous episodes. Philippe Asper. The legend goes that in 1793 Philibert Asper entered the Paris catacombs in an attempt to map them. He never came out. His body was supposedly found 11 years later, though his existence has never been officially confirmed. All that remains is a tomb in the Paris catacombs that says, in the memory of Philibert Asper, lost in this quarry on November the 3rd, 1793. Found 11 years later and buried at the same place, April 30th, 1804. Alright, I'm just curious, what was this guy then? Was he an explorer or a scientist, or if he actually lived? He was a doorkeeper of the Val de Grace Hospital during the French Revolution. He died in the catacombs of Paris in November 1793 after entering them via a staircase located in the hospital courtyard. His motives are unknown. Alright, interesting. Asper might have been identified by the hospital key ring hanging from his belt. Alright. It's really weird that under in the catacombs of Paris, they actually exist, I think, still. It was like a mass grave. Like millions of people were stored there. Probably still till today. Really a bit macabre. Alright, Pierre-Augustin Caron de Beaumarchais, the French playwright and inventor best known for his three Figaro plays. He dabbled in everything: arms dealing, diplomatic negotiations, watchmaking, rebellion, the slave trade, literature. Early on he even gave music lessons to the daughters of Louis XV. He covertly helped the American revolutionaries in their bid for independence, and his play The Marriage of Figaro helped foment popular discontent against the aristocracy in France. However, once the revolution began, he ran afoul of the Revolutionary Committee and landed in the Abbaye prison. He narrowly escaped the wave of killings of 1792, known as the September Massacres, having been released literally the night before they began. Man, if you call that lucky, that is really, really lucky. Because otherwise, I think they killed almost everybody who was imprisoned at the time. They just killed them. So if he was still in prison when they started, chances of him dying were really like certain, more or less. So yeah, good on him that he got out. Good for him. Pierre-Simon Laplace, born in 1749. Scientist Pierre-Simon Laplace became one of France's foremost mathematicians. He collaborated with chemist Antoine Lavoisier to show that water was a compound of hydrogen and oxygen. In his 5-volume work, Celestial Mechanics, published in 1799, he calculated the movements of the planets, as well as determining their form and their influence on the tides. He eventually received the Legion of Honor and worked to reorganize France's prestigious École Polytechnique, which I think exists till this day. the Giant Iscariotte. At the beginning of July 1789, a rumor spread throughout Paris concerning the Giant Iscariotte, a depiction of a brightly colored character covered in green scales and wearing iron armor, with hair made of snakes, with gaping blood-red mouths. There's standing out in the crowd, and then there's this. Ah, funny. From time to time, the Giant Iscariotte would return. Yeah, sorry, but these footnotes are so dumb. It is. I just find them a bit annoying, so I ridicule them a bit. From time to time, the Giant Iscariotte would return to personify other political events. The September massacres, the nationalization of church property, and so forth. Alright, can you imagine how superstitious and almost naively childish, believable the Paris population was at that time? Believing or personifying the French Revolution as a brightly colored character covered in green scales and wearing iron armor with snakes as hair. Yeah, it's really astounding that grown-ups believe those kinds of stories. Thomas Paine. During the American Revolutionary War, Paine's pamphlet Common Sense fortified the resilience of the colonial troops and populace. Paine, a former corset maker, Quaker and privateer from Britain, revolutionized the political thinking of his time with his passionate invective. After the American Revolution, Paine played radical thinker to Edmund Burke's intellectual conservative in a clash over the implications of the French Revolution. Paine played radical thinker to Edmund Burke's intellectual conservative. I'm not sure whether that's grammatically correct. What is an intellectual conservative? As a noun? No, not as a noun. As an. It's Edmund Burke's intellectual conservative thinking, I would say. Or conviction, or whatever. There's a word missing, it seems, over there. Paine's book-length defense of the revolution, The Rights of Man, was condemned as libelous in Britain and provided intellectual succor to the anti-monarchists in France. He became extremely unpopular and took refuge in Paris, where he was warmly welcomed, particularly by the Girondists. He even founded a newspaper with Condorcet. Granted honorary French citizenship, he was elected to the convention, where he sat attentively despite his inability to speak French. He argued openly against the execution of Louis XVI, suggesting that he be exiled to the United States instead. Robespierre later had him arrested and thrown into prison. Paine narrowly escaped the guillotine and eventually returned to the United States. Escaping the guillotine but ending up in the States, the final proof that there is indeed a fate worse than death. Ha, funny. Alright, there are two words that I already looked up earlier but I forgot. Succor is one of them. Assistance and support in times of hardship and distress. Alright, and the other was invective. I already found that one earlier as well. But I don't really remember it. Insulting, abusive or highly critical language. There's a difference between insulting and abusing and being critical, so I'm not sure why that is all in the same meaning. Really awkward. Alright, that were all the persons. So we got the persons, now we have the locations, which is also pretty long. But yeah, let's quickly get through it. Hopefully it are less long sections. Alright, we're now looking at the bridges, and the ones that I'm sure I already read, I will skip for the sake of time. Because I did read quite a lot of these already in the playthrough itself. One thing that can be said for this bridge is that it has never changed names in 2000 years, despite the various floods and fires that would ravage and occasionally destroy it. The bridge has always been heavily used since it was the outlet to the Roman roads leading to Orléans and Lyon. It was also the obligatory passageway for students who attended the schools on the left bank hill of the Montagne Sainte-Geneviève. Pont Marie. The Pont Marie was named after engineer Christophe Marie and not the Holy Virgin. Haha. Who appealed to Henry IV to build a double wooden bridge across the Ile Saint-Louis. Despite Henry's assassination, the project continued. The bridge would later be renovated in stone. The enterprising Marie completed his assignment after collecting 20 years of toll charges. He was also tasked with creating the quays that encircle the island and plotting its streets. The first stone of the North Bridge was laid on October 11, 1611 and would be completed in 1630. In 1658, part of the bridge and the houses built atop it were destroyed by a flood, an all too common disaster in Paris at the time. About the time of the revolution, the last remaining houses were demolished. Yeah, we already for sure read that one. Yes, we already read that one for sure. Although many times the Pont Notre-Dame, although many times destroyed and replaced in the early 1300s, a few wooden planks served the purpose. Some form of bridge existed at the spot in Paris since nearly the founding of the city. The bridge was historically lined with houses, but these proved to put too much of a burden on the bridge's stability. Oh, Pont Rouge, yeah, we already read it. A wooden painted bridge linking the two islets, the Pont Rouge, survived the revolution but was soon destroyed and eventually replaced by the Pont Saint-Louis. Yeah, alright, I will read it, already read it I think. Pont Royal, one of the Paris' oldest bridges. The original Pont Royal was a tall bridge built in 1632 to replace a ferry. It was commonly called Pont Rouge due to its red color, not to be confused with the tiny Pont Rouge that linked the city's islands. Over the centuries, the bridge has undergone several name changes as well as several partial and complete reconstructions due to flooding. Pont Saint-Michel. The first bridge on this location was built during a lull in the 100 Years' War in around 1378. Right, that was built in 1378. This one of Paris' oldest bridges. The original Pont Royal was built in 1632. This one is 300 years earlier. Why isn't here any mentioning that it was one of the earliest bridges? Really weird. This one was from 1400. This one's 1578. 1614. This was even much older still. One of the oldest bridges. It is literally younger than all these before. Alright, but whatever. The first bridge on this location was built during a lull in the 100 Years' War in around 1378. It was named after the small nearby chapel of St Michel in the enclosure of the Palais du Roi, which also lent its name to the district. It was the first location of a fixed bridge linking the Cité to the left bank. Like all other bridges at the time, it was fragile and often ravaged by flood waters. At the time of the revolution, it was lined with 32 houses, which would only be demolished in 1809. Pont au Change. Yeah, we already read it, but I will read it again. This bridge owes its name to the goldsmith and money changers. By the way, this was Pont Saint-Michel. I'm not sure whether I said that. And Pont Royal, this one. Pont Change. This bridge owes its name to the goldsmith and money changers whose stalls lined the length of the bridge, effectively turning it into a gold district. Money changers played an important role at the time given the diversity of currencies and the likelihood of having clipped coins which were no longer worth their original weight. Pont au Double. The original Pont au Double was built under the reign of Francois I in 1515. Again older than this one, which is marked as one of the oldest bridges. It's crazy. This one is maybe younger, and this one is also older. All bridges here are older than this one, and only this one is marked as one of Paris's oldest bridges. Really weird. The original Pont Notre-Dame was built under the reign of Francois I in 1515 as a means of transporting the sick to the Hôtel Dieu. The name comes from the toll imposed, a double denier. This toll was extremely unpopular and was finally put to an end in 1789. Pont de la Concorde Revolution. The taking and subsequent destruction of the Bastille would provide an unexpected and fortuitous supply of stone at minimum cost. The stones from the ancient fortress were reused to build this bridge, which spanned from the Palais Bourbon to the Place de la Révolution and its guillotine. The bridge was completed in 1791 and was named Pont de la Révolution, later to be called Pont de la Concorde. Right, I want to know what Concorde means, also the plane. Reflecting the treaty between the British and the French governments that led to Concorde's construction. The name Concorde is from the French word concorde, which has an English equivalent concord. Both words mean agreement, harmony, or union. Alright. Treaty between British and Alright, last one, Pont de la Tournelle. The Pont de la Tournelle replaced a wooden bridge constructed in 1370, whose complicated name, Pont de l'Île Notre-Dame et Saint-Bernard, did little to make it popular. Washed away by a flood, it was finally replaced by a stone construction in 1656. La Tournelle, for turrets, was a small fortress that was well known among Parisians, since it served as a comfortable prison reserved for galley slaves thanks to the caring priest Saint Vincent de Paul. Public charity thus supported these galley slaves. However, on September the 3rd, 1792, the prison's 63 convicts were butchered by drunken patriots worked up to a frenzy by diatribes of Marats, and who had no doubt mistaken the convicts for dangerous counter-revolutionaries. This is what I mean. All these revolutionaries themselves, they are so dumb. Paris would be such better off if all the non-revolutionaries would have survived, and all the revolutionaries themselves would have ended up on the guillotine they themselves invented. It's crazy what an amount of human capital was destroyed during that revolutionary time. But anyways, a couple of words. Diatribe, I think that's just like a speech or something, or like a written thing. A forceful and bitter verbal attack against someone or something. Alright, one moment. Just looking it up in my native tongue. Yeah, it's like a dissertation, I guess, a little bit. And there was another word here. Yeah, galley slaves. I also already checked that out. I think that are the rowers on boats. Is a slave rowing in a galley either a convicted criminal sentenced to work at the oar or a kind of human chattel, often a prisoner of war assigned to this duty of rowing? What the hell is chattel? A personal possession. Yeah, that's a bummer if you are the personal possession of somebody else, like a slave. That's incredible. Cruel. Alright, and then what I was thinking, because the only conclusion I have from these bridges is that it's stupid that one is marked as one of the oldest. Yeah, and I was thinking, and the others, most of the others are older, maybe with the exception of one, that last one. Well, that last one even, no, it's also originated 1370. Yeah, okay, this one is younger, but this one is marked as like the oldest. So I was like, okay, maybe that is because the other ones, they were all destroyed by floods and then reconstructed. And then the counter shall reset, maybe, in the author's view. So maybe, I was like, okay, this Pont Royal is maybe the only one that is still the original construction. But that's also not the case, because the last sentence says, several partial and complete reconstructions due to flooding. So why this one is marked as one of the oldest bridges, while every other bridge is older in this list? I mean, it's not untrue. It's probably one of the oldest bridges compared to all bridges currently in Paris. But compared to this list, it really doesn't make any sense to highlight that one as being very old. But anyways, that are the bridges. Yeah, now I'm a bit hesitant to go with this one. Oh my god, it's so long again. This really is like, yeah, this will take the whole day reading this database. Alright, let's just go through it. Ville du Calvaire Convent, the convent of which nothing now remains, was situated in the heart of the lively district on Rue de Turenne. It was founded by Père Joseph in 1622. The good thing is that from that long list, a lot of them I already read during the playthrough. I will skip those. The revolutionaries expelled the last remaining sisters and transformed the chapel into a theater dubbed Le Boudoir des Muses. It was situated next to the famous Boulevard du Crime, named after the many melodramas that played in its theaters. The theater ran until 1807 before it was closed by the Empire. La Madeleine. Yes, we read this one during Nostradamus Enigma. Notre-Dame, for sure we read this one. St Chapelle, same. We for sure read this one. Nice, so we are making some progress here. We read this one during, I think, yeah, multiple times, but also during one of the Nostradamus Enigmas. We read this one as well. Also one of the Nostradamus Enigmas. Église Saint-Lieu and Saint-Gilles lent their names to this church. Saint-Lieu and Saint-Gilles lent their names to this church situated in the bustling Rue Saint-Denis. Since 1320 it was originally the Saint-Gilles Chapel before being extended to become the Saint-Lieu Church. Extensively and repeatedly reworked since then, only its facade is now of any architectural significance. So it was just like so many buildings nowadays destroyed by modern architecture. Alright, oh, this goes pretty quickly through here. This one we read as well during the Nostradamus Enigma, I think. It was one of the locations of one of the Nostradamus Enigma's riddles. This one as well, with the elm in front of it, also a Nostradamus Enigma location. I'm only not 100% sure whether I read it myself in my head or whether I actually read it out loud in the playthrough, but I cannot imagine I did not read this in the playthrough itself. Alright, Église les Célestins. This one is maybe a little bit less sure. This church was built in 1352, funded by Pope Celestine V from his own funds. The chapel once held the hearts of Henry, oh, I already read this one, the second, Francis II and Henry III. But by 1792 the church was no more and its gardens had become barracks. The hearts of the kings were safely transferred to the Louvre, to Saint Denis and to the Museum of Versailles. And there was you thinking the royals were heartless. Funny. Alright, nice. Districts. This one is a short one. Yeah, we already read this one during the main story over there. This one I think as well. But let's read this one again. Located in the heart of Paris, the Marais district's finest hours would come during the 17th century, when the many aristocrats who lived there transformed it into a fashionable district. In the 18th century, the nobility gradually abandoned the district in favor of the Faubourg Saint-Honoré or the Faubourg Saint-Germain. In spite of this departure, the Marais would always retain its image as an aristocratic district, which meant that with the coming of the revolution, rioters would set about destroying the many symbols of royalty and nobility that were found there. It was a wonderfully convenient sort of one-stop shop for those of the riotous persuasion. With the revolution, the district changed progressively. The abandoned townhouses were taken up by merchants to form warehouses or workshops. The beautiful homes were thus preserved, and so the Marais became inhabited by more modest people who kept shops or practiced craft trades, which in turn gave way to small factories and semi-industrialized trades of the 19th century. Alright, pretty sure I already read that one, but thought to do it again. I'm not sure what Faubourg means, whether that is a noun or a name. A suburb, especially one in Paris, the Faubourg Saint-Germain. Alright. That's clear. One moment. Quickly checking something else. Yes. Saint Marcel. Alright, I don't really recognize this one. Along with the Faubourg Saint-Antoine, the Faubourg Saint-Marcel, located on the left bank in the south of Paris, was the city's... How is the left bank in the south? That would be in the west or east, right? Not necessarily, but... Alright, just disregard that comment. Was the city's other foremost working class neighborhood. The river Bièvre runs through it. Yeah, we already read it, but I will continue. The district was renowned for its tanneries, for the manufacture of blankets, as well as for hosiery, dyeing and laundry. Sounds like a crazy place where anything could happen. The imposing manufacture de Gobelin, where the finest tapestries in France were produced, was located here. The district was made famous by Jean-Jacques Rousseau's description. I had imagined a city of a most imposing appearance, as beautiful as it was large, where one could see only splendid streets and palaces of marble or gold. As I entered the Faubourg Saint-Marcel, I saw nothing but dirty, stinking little streets, wretched black houses, a general air of squalor and poverty, beggars, carters, menders of clothes, sellers of herb drinks and old hats. All this so affected me at the outset that all the real magnificence I have since seen in Paris has not been sufficient to efface my first impression, and I have always retained a secret aversion against living in the capital. Rousseau later became the patron saint of website travel reviewers. Funny. Alright, 1 second. Damn it. What does hosiery mean again? Almost there. Stockings, socks and tights collectively. Alright, and there was another one. Yeah, efface. As a verb. I know that efficacity is like effectiveness, I think. Erase from a surface, make oneself appear insignificant or inconspicuous. But then what is efficacy? Efficacy, that is the one I meant. That's like effectiveness, right? The ability to produce a desired or intended result. Right, I mixed that up with efface. Where is it? Yeah, it has not been sufficient. I have since seen that all the real magnificence I have since seen in Paris has not been sufficient to efface my first impression. Alright, who was this? Rousseau? Yes. Villa de Versailles. Yeah, we already read this way earlier, I think. It was in some. Alright, that were the districts. Then general, that's the long one. I think want to do the short ones, and then we will go to through the big one. Hotel particulier. How long do we still have? 4 minutes. Hopefully we can do these 2 sub-menus before the big one in this episode. Alright, a spectacular hotel via there. A spectacular accumulation of styles, the overall inconsistency of which gives the edifice its charm. The site was chosen by Charles V for his hotel at St. Paul, away from the bustle of the Louvre. In 1676, the parliamentary advisor Gaspard Viaubé commissioned Jules Ardouin Mansart, him again, to draw up plans for his new abode. The site was chosen by Charles V for his Hotel St. Paul. And then in 1776, is that around the same time? Is that later? Is that earlier? I guess earlier. A parliamentary advisor gave commission to draw up plans for his new abode. For him, it's my cat. For himself or for King Charles V. Vibier was a charming and popular poet, friend of Jean de La Fontaine and Madame de Sévigné. He was also Councillor of State and Chancellor to Queen Maria Theresa, wife of Louis XIV. So that is probably after Charles V, I guess. He was also Councillor of State and Chancellor. To Queen Maria Theresa, however, hardly surprisingly, financial means were no obstacle. Alright, it's totally unclear story over here. When was Henry V? Henry V of England. He led 2 successful invasions of France. And he lived in like the 14th, 15th century, so that's way before. But then why, explain it a bit, because it's over here, it says like, okay, there was a Hotel St. Paul, created by Charles V. And then 2 centuries later, somebody commissioned to draw plans for his new abode, which implies that it's like an empty piece of land or something. Instead of saying to replace the Hotel St. Paul by something new, that would explain everything. Now it are 2 loose time periods, 2 other characters, and there's not really a link between it. For me it's very confusing. Viaubé was a charming and popular poet. Whatever. And I also don't know what a hotel means. Is that like a house for these guys, or is it actually a hotel in the modern day meaning? Yeah, it's the same. So why does King Charles V and some kind of a parliamentary advisor. Why do they start running hotels? I have no idea. Why are city halls called Hotel de Ville? Alright, very, very confusing and annoying because I want to get through here. And my cat is also distracting me. Yeah, it's a mansion. No. Sorry, I'm almost done. Oh my god. Oh my god. Jesus Christ, work. Oh my god, there's not even an English wiki for it. This is pretty weird because if it's such a landmark thing. History. Here. And you don't see that, and that's the annoying part, why it all takes so much time, this. The building itself, this is then another one, Hotel de Cluny, is a rare extant example of the civic architecture of medieval Paris. It was formerly the townhouse, hotel, of the abbots of Cluny. So it's a townhouse. So when I just literally look for French meaning hotel, you only get like, yeah, an establishment where you can get paid lodging. Why not put this meaning there as well? A townhouse. Hotel Particulier is a grand townhouse comparable to the British townhouse or mansion. Alright, and that's also the name of these menus. Alright, so it has nothing to do with lodging. Alright, this one we had. We already read this one in the Nostradamus Enigmas. Already read that one way earlier, I think, in the episodes. And Hotel de Sully. This is maybe, I'm not sure whether I read this one. I did so myself, but I'm not sure whether I read it out loud previously. Hotel de Sully. In 1634, the Duc de Sully, a fairly dashing 74-year-old, expanded his townhouse to include a building at the bottom of the small garden, which still today juxtaposes the Place des Vosges, then the Place Royal. By now attached, he was known to prance about under the square's arcades, wearing outdated jewelry. Meanwhile, his wife, who was 50 years his junior, went from one lover to the next. It was from the terrace of this hotel that Madame de Sévigné and her friends watched the poisoner and elite sorceress Catherine Desay, known as La Voisin, being carted away to be burned at the stake at the Place de la Grève on November 10th, 1680. Alright, so why? Seems quite unrelated to. Alright. It was also while coming out of this same hotel that the young Voltaire, already the darling of Parisian society, was set upon by the servants of nobleman Chevalier de Rohan, who later had him imprisoned at the Bastille. They had quarreled over an actress. Voltaire was later cleared and would receive an annuity of 1200 livres. Alright, so quickly check out, I think I already did, but who is that Madame de Sévigné? Kibo. Sorry, that's my cat. Kibo. What do you? Marquise de Sévigné, Marie de Raboutin Chantal, also widely known as Madame de Sévigné, was a French aristocrat remembered for her letter writing. Most of her letters, celebrated for their wit and vividness, were addressed to her daughter, Françoise Marguerite de Sévigné. She is revered in France as one of the great icons of French 17th century literature. Interesting. Wasn't expecting that. Yeah, so she is a century earlier than the French Revolution. Alright, so we finished that one. Only we have to do the palaces and the general, the big one. But again, I think quite a lot I've already read. So the palaces in the next episode, and then continuing with the general one. Hope you enjoyed. Hope to see you there in the next episode. For the meantime, do not forget, always do keep on gaming. See you later.